Hello there folks, welcome back. This is Ferengi on board again. Welcome to my channel, a place where I discuss different topics about spirituality, introspection, psychology, a bit of psychiatry that I know and have acquired through the sources that I've gone through, game design, and well, probably a few other topics that I may help people with. And well, I am going to share today another answer that I feel, and note that I prefer taking my time before I give an answer. And I would like to answer a question regarding truths about INFJs. Okay, I've answered the previous question on this and I made quite a lengthy answer. Now, to speak about myself, if you haven't seen that previous video of mine on INFJs, okay, is it bad to have an INFJ personality? I discuss a bit about, actually a bit more because it's a lengthy video, it's around 50 minutes or so. And I explain a bit what's the possible bad point about having actually a personality and why personal development is not necessarily the best thing. It's actually not quite a good thing. It's more like how society trains you to become complacent. But at the same time, an identity is important because you cannot experience life without an identity. But the problem that most people nowadays face is that when they dive into the option of an identity, they become too attached to it and they turn it into who they really are. Okay, like I know everyone says that when you are born here you forget literally everything. Well, honestly, it's not quite forgetting. Okay, now forgetting, as of what I know and what I felt, forgetting is like this. It occurs just because the thoughts that you have manifested, okay, you have thought of, they have their own vibration, and when you switch your vibration they will not be available times or something similar to this, because their vibration is so much more different. Now this is something that is still fuzzy, I haven't felt entirely, okay, but let's not get too much into separate topics because I love over delivering and I honestly prefer making short videos, although again my videos may actually be much lengthier. So INFJ is one of the personality types of the Meyer-Briggs test. It was created quite on an interesting premise that people have at least one feature of at least one well, actually they have at least, yes, at least one feature of at least one or two, at least one, let's say, of these personality types. Okay, so the point about this is that you're not suddenly one class, okay, just like it was most likely back then in the time before humanity's awareness became broader. Back then you would be classified in one class, and you know, like, probably you would die with that because that's how beliefs have been existing for so long. Nowadays, for example, in my case, I have taken the Meyer-Briggs test, the long version, I think around 80 to 100 questions. Of course online, not at a psychologist, but it was still a long ride. And initially I ended up as an ENTP-INTP hybrid because of my somewhat dual nature, both extrovert and introvert. Usually I tend to be more introverted because I prefer not soaking up energy from people, and the environment where I live actually, you know, is not necessarily positive. It's filled with people who are more like sleepwalking zombies. They don't know anything about life, but they, you know, they have so much impression and opinion that it almost kind of hurts. Okay, and when you put yourself in such people's shoes, it's okay, it can actually hurt. Okay, a long time ago, not necessarily long, like probably a while, a few years I could say, and when I was young, I think I actually told myself that I have the ability to mirror others, and I don't know where that actually came from, because back then, well, as other people would say, I was too young to understand things, but for some reason I had this impression. And nowadays I find it so easy in some situations to simply you know um, simply understand certain people, because it's like I become a copy of them. And if they really don't want to understand the fact that I know something about them, it's like I'll probably turn into them, and okay, let's see if they recognize themselves. And if you piss them off, it's most likely the fact that they admit, but they don't want to accept it. Okay, because that's one of the reasons why people may get angry. Now, the INFJ is one of those more mysterious personalities, because, well, first of all, it's said to be the personality in the Meyer-Briggs test that is represented by the least amount of people. Some say an estimative number of 2% of the human population, which I simply disregard the numbers and the such, because it's like all they do with these is just they interview around 1,000 people, and based on the results of 1,000 people, or let's say even 1,000,000 people, they generalize that to 8.5 billion people that we are on this planet, or whatever the number. So the point about this is okay, now let's actually dive into it. So the INFJ, okay, I actually found an answer in here, and I'll actually use it a bit to structure my own, instead of just speaking, because if I speak from myself, it's not gonna be much different most likely, but I will also over deliver, and I might actually make the video much longer. So now the problem that I have, and okay, so I was speaking about INFJs. Okay, so initially I took the test, and I ended up as an ENTP INTP. I read about those, and I was like at least 60-70% of both. So I said, okay, the test is alright, I cannot argue against it. Okay, because when you take a test, you have to make sure that you read a lot about what your so-called allotted class is, or classifier, or whatever. Okay, and you should signal, hey, you know what, some of these ideas are not specific to me. Okay, but okay, in that case, at least let's say 70% were like that. 2 years later, I took the test again, and I ended up as an INFJ. And I said, okay, now that's awkward. And I read about INFJs as well, and I said, okay, like at least 60-70% of these I also have. And I bet ENTPs, INTPs haven't been changed, okay, like the personality type and the specifics of it as they were classified, I doubt they would change. So I guess I would fit anywhere in between those things, ENTP, INTP, INFJ. Now, what I don't like about people, and well, sciences in general, is that they have this awful, awkward, and I would say personally bad habit of generalizing. Okay, it's like science nowadays, well, kind of always has been, but nowadays it seems much more brutal. It's kind of like the Inquisition back then. If you don't agree to what it is said nowadays, you're kind of an odd person. Okay, there's something broken about you, right? It's all these emotional plays that society is playing just to distract you from yourself and make your life shit, so that you can be easily controllable by anyone who suddenly appears before you as if they have exactly the solution for you. And this is something that was designed in the year 1970s. In the 70s, I forgot what it was called exactly, but it's problem reaction solution. Okay, society is full of problems that it teaches you how to create them for yourself and believe in those as if they are real. Then they come up with the solutions. Okay, because you'll react to your own problems, and society comes with so many fake gurus and the such that will present you the so-called solution, and it's all about stripping you of the money that you're spending so much time to work. Okay, so INFJs really love helping people. Okay, now this is another generalization. Okay, the way it is explained, presented, it's not entirely true. Okay, like INFJs love helping people, yes, but you cannot generalize it entirely. Okay, each of these has their positive and their negative traits, and it matters based on what vibration the person has, mentally, psychologically, spiritually, and the such. But INFJs are not the only ones who love helping people. All other It is a natural sociological aspect of us as a race to love helping others. Okay, it is just our upbringing. Okay, the negativity of the environment that we are born into, and similar things like that that program us to simply detest on other human beings. Okay, an experiment was done, well, and this is not the only one, but this experiment was done a while ago. Okay, and to a child who was, like a few years old, 3 4 years old. Okay, the child was taken care accordingly, and like everything that a child would need, they were given. And the child was given two pictures. Okay, a picture of a white person and a picture of a black person. Okay, and the child was asked, do you see any difference in between the two people? Okay, and the child responded, well, I don't know, it's like I see them smiling. Okay, both of the people were indeed smiling. So the point about racism and hatred, in the end, there's kind of a programming that goes with this. Okay, it's like it happens because we are programmed. Okay, and it also happens because we have expectations, and when something happens, it disturbs those expectations, in return bringing some awkward results. Okay, like, I don't know, you probably have an expectation from people to be good and nice to you, and I don't know, you're probably a white person, or let's say a black person, and a person of another color simply behaves like a dick with you. But not because you did something wrong, most likely their stack was already full, and I don't know, you just were the unlucky person at not the right time, and that's a lesson that you get in time. If you don't learn the fact that when people just blow their stack around you, it's not your fault unless you actually did them something, well, that's bound to happen to you again and again and again. So, people will end up saying, okay, the other color is definitely, like very negative, they're bad, and, especially if those people don't have a well-trained mind, they'll easily end up with saying all black people are bad, all white people suck, and all sorts of ideas like this that they don't have any sense. Okay, like each color, okay, each skin color is represented by people, and all those persons have a good side and a bad side. Okay, some people may lean more towards their negativity because their vibration is lowered by themselves and also by their environment. Others simply tend towards their positivity. No one is necessarily better or worse than the other. So it is a social aspect of us to love helping other people, but low self-esteem and lack of love received during life simply makes you more susceptible to manipulation, okay, to programming, because if you are not receiving your own life, you will start creating personalities according to which you are entitled to not love others because you haven't received what you required. Now, why INFJs are said to love helping other people? Well, INFJs, okay, they are more in tune with what they like to do. Okay, they tend, not they are, okay, they tend to become more in tune with who they are, what they are, and they tend to want to be more genuine. Okay, if we were to take this on a scale, the point about INFJs would be that they are kind of the wise folks, the ones who usually won't speak unless you go to them. Okay, they are kind of the oh yes, just like I've heard this expression, the silent rainmakers. Okay, when they make a change, they're not necessarily like, especially in my case, but in my case it would be like somewhat half. Okay, I'm not interested in drawing the light, okay, on me. Okay, I'm not interested in being in the middle of the lights. Okay, the show be on me. Mainly because the energy that I draw, I really want it to be not necessarily overly positive. Okay, but I don't want to draw towards me like negativistic folks and people who will just imagine all sorts of things. Okay, because I'm not an angel. Okay, as I've told my parents and other people, I'm not an angel that came here to be an archangel. Okay, I'm not an angel that came here to learn how and eventually, most likely, even become an archangel. No, I'm an archangel who came here to experience the idea of balance, okay? Both positivity and negativity. I came here to do good things, I came here to do bad things, based on my own will, based on my own aspects and specifications, okay? Because that's what the world is. Anytime you think you are doing something good, most likely it's not gonna be as good on the other person's part. So INFJs, being more in tune with themselves, okay, they have also a tendency to understand other people, because being more in tune with yourself, you will simply learn that everyone is kind of the same, okay? I've learned this thanks to StarCraft and, well, the map designer out of StarCraft. And how I realized this is, well, every time, like ever since I was young, I really loved creating maps. And when I would create maps, okay, there was also an option in some games like auto generate, and they would create you a map already, and you just, like, continued on that. Okay, I don't like this part, let's actually change it, let's do certain other things. And every time you use auto generate, okay, you get a new map, with, of course, the more maps you do, chances increase that the same map or a very similar map will be created. Now the point about this is that every time I would create a new map, I would realize that even if it looks different, okay, it triggered a part of my wisdom, okay? Even if it looked different, it's actually the same, okay? Yes, it does look different, but it has the same elements. It's just that they are distributed in different places. And I was like very young when I did this, okay, like, I don't know, 15, probably 16, probably younger, I don't remember exactly. So the point about this, or I don't know, anywhere around that, 16 to 18, let's say. So the point about this is very simple. People are exactly the same. They have the same specifications. It's just that they are in different quantities, just like we have different quantities of items on a map. Like every time you create a new map, you're probably not gonna have the same amount of mountain surface and mud surface and this and that and that, okay, like literally any other thing, okay? There will always be in different variations. This is also something that happens, because of the way you were raised, environment, friends, entourage, schooling system, and so on and so forth. So loving to help other people is something that comes from inside when you have a much greater love towards yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that INFJs automatically love themselves more, because they also tend to be the prime target of narcissists, but they're not the only ones that are targeted by narcissists, okay? The INFJs, as I would present them, they would appear in two vibrations, okay? The lower one, which is still in need to go through different traumas, and the INFJ is a person who tends to make use of their emotional body much more, okay? And usually they need to go through traumas in order to understand things and maybe become even better, okay, and tend to become probably in the same life, the higher vibrational INFJ, okay, who simply develops themselves, understands themselves, and finally starts working towards improving themselves even more, okay? Now, soaking up other people's energy, okay? So soaking up other people's energy is not an INFJ specification, okay? This is something that happens to literally everyone. It's just that INFJs may be much more aware of this, okay? The higher your awareness is, the higher your vibration is, the more you will draw on the vibration of others, okay? Because it's exactly like in physics. If you put two spheres, okay, that have the same temperature one near the other, there is not much of an energy transfer, right? If you put two spheres that have similar temperature, okay, one will eventually cede energy and the other one also cedes energy, because they will tend to become balanced, okay? So there's again not that much energy transfer, okay? If you put something hot near something cold, there's gonna be a big energy transfer, right? That's the same thing with INFJs. I could say that INFJs tend to be some of the wiser, older souls of humanity, but I'm not gonna generalize this, okay? Having that, idea, that sense of existing, okay, through the prism of INFJs, okay, it is something that is more peculiar to wiser souls, okay, because INFJs are more in tune with themselves, and this is something that is very rare. Okay, most people just run away from themselves, they don't like themselves, and at the same time, unfortunately, they wouldn't do anything to improve that. Well, not unfortunately, because, well, let's not get emotionally invested. Okay, that's how you create attachments, and that's how you invite people in your life. And, well, people with negative expectations of you, and they will start abusing you more or less. That's how narcissists actually get into your life, by having unknown or even known expectations, like wanting to be abused and such, because you lack self-love. Now, soaking up other people's energy is something that happens literally to anyone, okay? The moment you are near some people, you will draw from some of their energy, okay? The auric field of a person is said to extend over 3 or 4 meters around them, but depending on traumas, some people's auras can be like even 20 meters around them. I heard that from people who went through, for example, sexual exploits, and the idea of rape. Their aura can reach even, I don't know, 15 to 20 meters. I don't know if more. Okay, I'm not a researcher in this. I'm just giving you some numbers. And I always prefer reminding people that whatever I say, don't take it necessarily for granted. Take it with a grain of salt, and never accept something that you haven't experienced it. Take it as a point, okay, but don't turn it into a Bible, okay? Soaking up people's energy is something that happens in two ways: instantly, directly, and well, again, somewhat instantly, okay, but indirectly. Okay, so how can you draw some person's energy indirectly? Well, this is something that I've heard, it's called the pendulum effect. I actually have a video on that. I think there are other people who have spoken about this. There's, for example, Tail Swan. She has an awesome video about wait, she speaks about something similar, but I think it's Victor Odo or Aaron Doughty that speaks about the pendulum effect. Okay, it was something that I heard from the first time, and I did some mental research, and I received some answers as well, because I prefer being in commune with the universe, and I usually receive some messages sooner or later. Okay, so soaking up people's energy just happens when you're in the bus with them, but not necessarily. Okay, that's something that may happen, but it happens when you listen to them. The person who speaks is the one who controls the conversation, because when they speak, your attention is forwarded towards those, and if where your attention goes, energy flows. That is why there are those people who simply just talk, and you just feel yourself drained, right? They just suck, like literally suck your life from you, because that's what they're doing. They're called energy vampires or emotional vampires or whatever. They just create drama and traumas. Okay, that's why I call that drama. Okay, traumas and drama in their life, so that they draw attention. Okay, all they want is attention, and that's it. And as much as possible, of course. And if they start swearing and cursing and manifesting negatively, and especially when you gossip, that's when energy exchanges happen. Okay, especially when you gossip and such. So this is the direct way that you can take on other people's energy. Now, indirectly, every time people go in a certain place, everything that they manifest, all thoughts that they manifest, they are just like shockwaves that bombard the environment. And as those bombard the environment, you're gonna pick on those sooner or later. Let's take it like this. Ever gone through a road, down a road or up a road, depending whatever you want to take it? Okay, have you ever just wandered on the streets or gone to a certain place you've never been before, and suddenly you're struck by some inexplicable fear or worry or whatever awkward thoughts that it's never belonged to you in the first place, because like most of your thoughts and emotions aren't yours anyways. You just took them and no one taught you how to let them flow, so you just let them in. And it's like planting them, and those seeds started growing into weeds, and those weeds are what produce all sorts of things in your mind that they don't give you peace. And those weeds are invitations for some mental, astral, spiritual parasites, whatever you want to call them. And every time you think and help those weeds grow, you're doing nothing else than feeding those little parasites, because that's the only thing they want. They just want some food. And of course they most likely may multiply, because that's why there's so much negativity in the world, because humanity is too busy propagating that negativity instead of finding solutions on how to actually solve them. So you can also soak up on people's energy wherever you go. Okay, I'm not saying now wherever you go you're gonna necessarily and automatically soak other people's energy. Okay, because if there are people who swear and curse, especially if they go to work, or in hospitals where there's already a lot of negativity, that's a place where such indirect energy transfers can occur. But again, in order for such energy transfers to occur, you have to do stuff that simply consumes your energy. Okay, like being on your phone all the time or getting distracted, that's gonna consume energy, because you're again thinking at some things that don't actually make you feel better, they don't make you evolve, and therefore they are doing nothing else than feeding some parasites. And as you are feeding those parasites, they are dumping into you their negativity, because everything is just an exchange. There is no such thing as positivity and negativity separated. They are both together. Someone takes positivity and gives you negativity at the same time. That's the same with narcissists. That's why you're always gonna feel so confused and so negative and so frustrated, because they're just transferring you their energy. When you're paying attention to them like the good puppy they want you to be, and most likely teach you how to be, that's a problem, because as it's going to happen, okay, the more attention you give to them, because you're not having most likely a mind that is well trained, right? And you'll keep thinking about them, so it's like you're technically feeding the vampire again and again. They don't have to mess with you anymore, because you're just gonna feed them energetically. Okay, that's how they teach you how to feed them. Okay, and then they just need to go to other people to get their narcissistic supply from. So soaking up other people's energy, this is a good point, but it is not entirely an INFJ specification. It's just that becoming tired from that is something that they are more aware of, and they are probably more sensitive to, because other people becoming emotionally insensitive, they're almost like dead people, because not allowing yourself to manifest emotions, it's just like being dead. Okay, because in the end, when you're on your deathbed and you draw the line, only your emotions are the only things that you'll remember. Okay, not that you have been in 200 places, okay, or you've done 1,000 things. Okay, only that which made you feel happy will be those things that will actually come into your mind. Okay, if you've made yourself a bad life, okay, like full of regrets and the such, those parasites are not gonna give you any vacation. Okay, they're not gonna give you any spare time, they're just gonna feed on you even more, because by giving in to those thoughts, okay, to the constant thinking, okay, the negativity, the victimization, you're just inviting them. They're just accepting the invitation, because who would ever refuse a free meal? It's the same thing, for example, with animals. Okay, like for example with dogs. Okay, if you give the dog something that's good to eat, they will eat it, instead of just going and foraging 20, 30, 40 kilometers a day. Why not? Instant gratification. Okay, it takes work to get to know them. The third point is a bit better, yes, because INFJs tend to be more aware of themselves, and again I said tend, and INFJ is kind of a personality that as a requirement, okay, self-awareness, is kind of a requirement. Okay, Being an INFJ usually has a lot of traits like wanting to help people, being that introverted person who easily understands others and such. These come with a certain amount of spiritual wisdom, okay, many previous lives that have been lived, thousands, probably more, it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not going to present INFJs as if they would be some kind of gods walking amongst mere mortals, okay. Having so much more sensitivity is a double-edged sword, because if you don't learn how to use that, okay, how to use your emotions for your own benefit, well, your life is gonna become a hell. It takes work to get to know them, yes, because this one is deeply correlated with 4. They hate small talk, okay? They don't like talking small things. They like, and in my case as well, they like talking about more advanced things. Like when I was in the 10th, 11th grade, I would speak about the cybernetic dimension and, you know, things that later on I discovered they got to be called as virtual reality. I would speak about back then about viruses of the mind in the 9th and the 10th grade, and how small entities come and inhabit people's minds and have them function erroneously. And there has been only one girl that actually understood me on that, and she told me, like, you have a very negativistic, sad way of viewing the world. And I said, why does the whole planet or so many people believe that I'm a negativistic person? I'm just a realistic person. I just present things the way they are because I can rarely see them otherwise, okay? I'm not presenting myself as, you know, like a farseer, okay, or a you know, someone who sees the things entirely for what they are, okay. Like, at least I'm better than most other people, because so many people just get stuck in illusions, and I really don't like illusions. Ever since I was young, I knew I had an aversion towards concepts and illusions. Usually with INFJs you have to talk about things that are deeper, like relationships. They're not the kind to simply go through 20 relationships. They just prefer a person that they will share their existence with, and that's kind of my case. And, you know, like, I invest automatically a lot of time in studying people, and that includes the way they speak, the way they articulate each and every word. It's like my mind is a database of such information, and, you know, my subconscious does the work, and, well, I just get the results. And yes, I know it can sound a bit vague, or you know, less than normal or different, let's say. So I'm not urging people nor expecting people to believe me. These are just points of mine. So they are introverts, but people will guess them to be extroverts because of their extroverted feelings. This never happened to me, okay? People don't call me an extrovert because they know that I'm not necessarily. But when it comes to people, I can present things, you know, like right in the face. And especially nowadays, as I'm changing and developing, I just prefer being a bit, not necessarily aggressive. This is still something that I'm toning down, but presenting things frontally and directly. And this is something that usually, you know, pisses off a lot of people, because, as I've been saying, people are very sensitive to the truth, okay? They simply don't accept the truth, and, you know, they are teachers in their own way, okay? They are people, these people who theoretically are inauthentic, okay? So the point about this is that, let's see, should I actually talk about extraversion? Like, many people wouldn't say necessarily that I'm an extrovert, although having taken the Meyer-Briggs test, I ended up as being extrovert introvert. But when I did the INFJ part, I ended up as a lot more introspective, therefore introverted. But it doesn't mean that if you're deeply introspective or very introspective like I am, you don't necessarily need to be an introvert, okay? You can be an ambivert or an extrovert. But the point about introspection is that it is a very time consuming, or not necessarily time consuming, but energy consuming process, and it requires a lot of loneliness, because it requires no distractions when you do that. It's basically nothing else than a sort of meditation. I don't know about people guessing them to be extroverts because of their extroverted feelings. Now, the point about understanding people fast is having a lot of experience, previous life experiences, okay, like you know, experiences from other lives that suddenly becomes available and manifests in your life because your vibration is constantly increasing, and you are suddenly getting more and more downloads into your life that allow you better perception and awareness and the such. Or it could actually be that you have communicated with a lot of people, and communication nowadays, I feel it's something that's kind of on the verge of dying because people are more and more afraid of actually communicating. They can often mimic other personality types. Okay, so 6, they can often mimic other personality types. This is something that is very peculiar to me. For a long time, I'm a bit sleepy, I know. For a long time, I understood the fact that I did not have a personality, and all I was just an amalgamous pile of let's call it a pile of other people's abilities. I would laugh like one or two people because I liked their laughter. I would do that like other people because I liked how they did it, and basically I was nothing else than just that for a while. And as I improved, okay, now this is something that has recently come back into my mind because it's not been that important, so I simply disregarded it. Mimicking other people's personalities is not something that I find much of a challenge. It's just that I prefer being more authentic rather than just being a copycat of others. Okay, but this is something that happens usually to INFJs who haven't haven't trained their minds and emotions, because the way they get to understand people is by becoming at least temporary replicas of them, and again through this soaking up other people's energy. INFJs tending to be bigger sponges. The point about this is that they can easily make much greater downloads because they are more in tune with the universe, so their bandwidth allocation for transfers is much wider. Okay, it's much greater, so that is why they can also take a lot more from people. Now, the point about energy soaking is that it's also a good thing. Okay, when you shake hands, it's a way of soaking energy. Okay, ever wondered why you shake hands with your right hand? Because the right hand's wrist, okay, is a place that is in direct connection with your subconscious. Basically, when you shake hands with other persons, you always shake hands with your right arm. Okay, and that is how you get to know some things about the other person, and most likely you'll have some feelings in your gut, which is basically the second brain. And well, society teaches people well to disregard their gut feeling. And just by being close to other people, like before you get to handshake, right, when you look into another person's eyes, okay, the eyes are just like two directional feeding gates. Okay, because the way you look at other people is an expression of so many things of yourself. If you look towards other directions or whatever, and you manifest shyness, it's easy to be read by sensitive people because it's basically energy that you put out. Okay, you put out your energy of shyness. That's how when you are aware and oh my god, I think I actually have to go to sleep. Okay, so when you are more aware of other people's specifics, okay, it's much easier. Okay, it's much easier to read them because they're basically like any people are exactly like any other field. For example, the more you know, it's the easier to to go even deeper. Now, of course, some people are more complex, just like some fields of study. Some are more complex, their learning curve is steeper, but again, the point about this is the same. Okay, getting this feed of energy from others also happens when your auras overlap. Okay, the more aware you are, the more you will draw from that person. So the point is also, the more trained your mind and your emotions are, the more you'll realize the difference, okay, in between who you are and the energy that you have taken from others. Okay, when you start thinking and manifesting things that, states, okay, emotions or things like that, that don't belong to you, and you wouldn't manifest as such, it's easy to understand that it's from the other person. It's that easy peasy. Okay, so INFJs, don't trifle with them, you don't want to be on their bad side. Okay, the dark side of INFJs can be very emotional, and because of a lot of traumas, they can actually end up as dangerous people at the same time, because the more you traumatize a very sensitive person, the greater the killer you can actually end up with. Or a sociopath, or a narcissist that will end up having so much pleasure towards inflicting pain upon others, okay, just like narcissists actually love doing. So I don't know how dangerous or how bad it would be if you end up on their bad side. However, INFJs tend to always help people, and always, especially if they become more authentic, they prefer giving value first, and this always draws a lot of attention. So INFJs usually tend to be superconductors, okay, because or super connectors, okay, and these super connectors are basically people who form a lot of relationships, okay, long-standing relationships. So the worst thing that usually an INFJ would do to you would be to simply disregard you, okay, to simply ignore you, and that is kind of a bad thing, because if they are well trained emotionally and mentally, and yes, again, it might take them lifetimes to understand that, just like life cannot be experienced only once through the prism of any other Meyer-Briggs personality. But the point about this is that if they are well trained, they will simply disregard you because your energy is not fitting them. What they're interested in is people to provide value to, but also in return someone to help them back, okay. I'm not saying that they always, or they would have such expectation, okay. If you're lying to yourself that you don't have the expectation from people to do something back to you in return, well, you're actually kind of wrong, because this expectation is a program that we all have in our minds, and unless you learn how to weed it out, and it takes practice, yes, it's not impossible, but you will simply believe a lot of awkward things. And let's actually move a bit further, okay. So most likely INFJs will ignore you, and it's bad to simply be ignored by a person who has so many possible relationships, because that's a person who might actually call you. They might not be the most, the brightest tool in the shed, but they might actually have the right phone number, okay. That's the point. As someone said, you don't actually need to know everything to be a genius, you just need to have the right phone numbers, okay. Because today we have technology that we should employ more and more towards understanding other people and towards communication, but unfortunately people are just not doing this. So let's go to point 8. They are better at writing than they are at verbal communication. Yes, I kind of can understand this, I can attest to this. I'm also good at verbal communication, but at oftentimes I don't feel like talking to people, mostly because some of them are negative, or just because I'm not in the mood to start or to strike a new conversation with another person, because I know what I want from people and it takes a long time and energy, and life is a manifestation of ups and downs, and more aware INFJs know this, and they prefer embracing it instead of fighting against it, like most people say. When people don't understand that people has its lows as well, they will start swearing and cursing at themselves, because they don't understand that their body has a peak performance time and a low performance time during each and every day. And it also matters on your environment, how positive or negative it is, the quality of people around you, how positive and negative, supportive or non-supportive they are, and many other things, okay. Like the things you feed your mind with, and like how much you gossip and you do or not lower vibrational things. Okay, I know I've always been good at writing because I've had a passion ever since I was young to write books. Although I never published any one of these stories, okay, little novels, and one of them was actually like really lengthy. I just enjoyed doing that. Verbal communication, well, this could be somewhat or apparently a weak point of INFJs because just like with any other people, parents have this bad habit of teaching you that, you're not good at that. If you don't do what they say, you're gonna end up as a failure, and it's never good enough. And they just prefer being and keeping things to their own selves. And usually, an INFJ, like in my case, I prefer speaking when I know that I have something really important to say. And well, at times it's even good if people don't believe me, because I at times even expect people not to believe me, because again, I can have a sense of how people work. They may not show you their deepest self for decades, yes, but at the same time it might be surprising that they might not actually have a self, okay? How can that be? Well, the more authentic you become, you'll realize that you actually don't need a self, because the self is just a persona that you're creating, and persona means a mask, coming from the Latin okay, yes, from the Latin persona, which meant a face mask that people would put, the actors would put, so that they would give the impression they are suddenly a different character, okay, with the right outfits, and with a mask on their face they would depict gods, natural phenomena, or whatever other things, okay, that the theatrical world required, okay. So the more authentic you become, you'll no longer require a self, because the self is basically a pack of lies and programmings that you put into your head, and that's kind of it, okay? Like, that's kind of it. That's what a persona is. That's where your limitations lie. Okay, so their deepest self usually is preserved for people they feel they will be okay, I was reading this last part. You don't know me, you just think you know me. This is so true when it comes to dozens of people. Let's actually give this a big likey. So, indeed, their deepest self and their personality is something that may take most people a long time to understand, because most people are shallow. They just think they know you just because they know your favorite color, or they know what your name is, or they know that you work in a certain place, or they know that a certain person ditched you because you didn't have a good relationship. And many people will simply end up believing that, hey, you know what, I actually know you, and like literally I know everything about you, bitch. It's like, no, life doesn't simply work like that, okay? Now, you don't have to understand INFJs as being the kind to actually hide from you, although it might actually be true as well. Now, why this would happen is because I can't present myself to people who simply don't understand themselves, or to people who are running away from themselves, because people who run away from themselves tend to be very simple people. Because if you're running away from yourself, you're not investing into yourself, and secondarily, you're not gaining much awareness about yourself, so you'll always end up believing that you know things about yourself. But belief is acquiescence, okay? It means accepting without any sort of any sort of proof. When you believe in something, you don't need a proof for that, okay? And then lastly, never lie to an INFJ. They will know and it will matter. This is usually true, yes, because being in tune with themselves and being introspective, but let's not generalize, okay? Lying to an INFJ is not necessarily something bad. In my case, if it is a white lie, I don't mind it, because I'm surrounded by people who do that. It's like natural to them. The way society functions is it breeds such kinds of people, and my grandmother's turning more and more cuckoo, imagining things because of Alzheimer, and I think she's actually developing it more and more. and she's imagining things, and it's like, okay, it's just a stupid lie. So the point is, I don't mind lies, not because I want to be exploited, but because I simply don't invest time and resources into that. It goes back to this: I don't like small talk, so it makes no little to no sense or importance to me. And also, well, it was not written in here. Usually INFJs, I would point a number 11. They need the air recharge time, okay? They tend to be loners, not necessarily introverts, okay? They tend to be loners, okay? They can be extroverts, but they do require, and being more in tune with themselves, they will require more more alone time, okay, because they need to recharge their batteries, and also they need to cleanse themselves of the negativity they have been drawing, okay. The more aware you are of that, automatically you will simply move around certain types of people. You will simply move away from different types of foods, from different types of activities, and well, other things that probably until that level of awareness they would create you some sort of pleasure. INFJs can also be suckers, okay, as I said. Not all have a trained mind and emotion, and many fall prey for narcissists, because narcissists are the ultimate teachers that people may actually encounter in life, because, well, I have a video explaining why things are in reverse, and, well, why the master is the slave and the slave is the master. That's a video of mine in which I present the fact that everything in this reality, in this universe, is taught in reverse, because the truth can never be taught. It can never be learned. It can only be experienced. Unless you have experienced the truth, you simply cannot say that you know something, okay? You know something because you feel it clicks with you, but what that means when something clicks to you is that it sounds logical to your logical mind, okay? It's not necessarily that it is correct and typical to you. It just makes sense, okay? It just makes it's just logical to your mind, okay? INFJs won't always know the fact that you lied to them, so it won't always matter, because there will be a lot of them who have to learn, and most likely they will draw in narcissists, and they will get abused a lot, because that's how they will gain their spiritual wisdom, okay? That's how they improve. I'm not saying that you must suffer in life to improve, but without suffering and this trauma, okay, that you acquire in each and every life, you won't open up, okay? The more trauma you go through, you will have an impression that you break and you die, but what dies is who you think you were up till then. That's the point. Traumas have the purpose of destroying the personalities you thought you were, okay? Because when you meet a narcissist, you always invite them in your life through your behavior, okay? And they actually do very rigorous tests to see that you are, a very suitable candidate for their abuse, okay? And on some rare occasions, narcissists might actually test you by telling, hey, you know what, you'd actually need someone who's much better than me, okay? Of course, this will sound probably alien to most people, especially if they hate narcissists, but you simply can't hate them because they are more authentic than anyone else in the world. Because yes, I know they will cheat, they will lie, they will do whatever possible to manipulate, but that is their core mechanic, okay? That is who and what they are. They're not pretending. That is something that people have to understand, because it goes very deep to their cores, okay, to their roots. They're not pretending. That's how and what they really are, okay, compared to other people who just bitch, moan, complain, whine, okay, just because they expect people to do things for them, but no one will, because first of all, not everyone will serve you, and secondarily, people have and will mind their own business as well. And in this society where theoretically everyone has everything they need, but practically survival is still the only situation and emotion, like state, let's call it so, the only state existing, or almost the only state that the majority of people reside in, well, there's gonna be a lot of hatred, okay? There's gonna be a lot of negativity. and I don't have time for that. Okay, I don't have time for that. I've learned a lot of lessons in life. My grandmother has quite some narcissistic traits, so the point is I've learned my lesson. Okay, there are others to learn, yes, sure. I'm not gonna say that I am the wisest or something like that. The more you know, you realize that, well, it's actually the less you know, because there's so much more to learn. Now, hopefully you've liked this type of content that I'm creating. Feel free to like and subscribe. If you like it, feel free to share with other people so we can raise the awareness of people, all around the world. As usual, whatever you are doing is the best you can at the right pace for you. You are loved and appreciated. Take care of yourselves and remember to enjoy life, okay? Life is nothing else but experiencing and learning. Everything else is constructs that we have created, okay? Peach. Now, I'm wishing you peace, I'm wishing you love, and well, you are loved and appreciated. Ferenc on board, signing out.